Any editor can be used to build AngularJS applications, but for this demonstration, I'm going to use a free editor called Brackets. Now, if you're new to Brackets, you can head over to brackets.io and you can download it for Windows, Mac, and even other operating systems. It's built using HTML and JavaScript, but you can actually install it locally. And I like it because it kind of gets out of your way. It's very lightweight, but it also supports extensions, some live editing features, and more. So I'll let you read about that here if you're interested. Once you open it and get it running, normally they'll have a little sample that you can look at. I've cleared that out by simply clicking on these little up and down arrows here and saying open folder. In this case, I'm going to make a folder called end, and we'll select that. Now, as I go through these demos, I would highly recommend try to do them with me if you can. It's one thing to watch me do them. It's a whole nother thing to actually do it for real. You have the benefit, I guess I could say, of the pause button. So if you ever think I'm going too fast or too slow or whatever it is, you can pause or speed it up. So I'm going to right click and say new file, and I'm going to call this index.html. Now, you'll see that I get a little nothing here. So I'm going to add a doc type for the HTML doc type, HTML5. And then as I start typing tags, you'll see that Brackets actually gives me some code help, which is nice. So we'll do HTML, has nice tag completion. And then we could do head if you'd like. Maybe add a title, and I'll just say AngularJS Hello World. And then we'll add a body. Okay, now we need AngularJS. That's kind of step one in this process. And we could either put it up in the head, or we can put it down here in the body. Now, I prefer to put my scripts down in the body. And the reason for that is that allows the HTML to load first, then my script can load. Now, for this demo, if you put the script up in the head, it'll work just the same. So it really doesn't matter, but I do prefer down here. But I don't have a script yet, so we need to go off and get that. So to do that, I'm going to run off to angularjs.org. And I'm going to click on download. Now the version here will certainly change. They do fairly frequent updates, so it's easy to get out of sync with the version. But at the time this is recorded, that's where we're at. I'm going to go ahead and download it. Now I could just copy and paste this in and go with the CDN, but I'm going to go with the stable uncompressed, just in case we want to look at the script. And then hit download. Now this will go, in this case, into my downloads folder. So I'm going to run off to that folder here. Go ahead and grab that. And I'm going to copy it to my end folder that I showed earlier. So I'll run off to the desktop, go to end, and paste that in. All right, so now we have our script. Now normally I'd put it in a scripts folder, but for this first demo, we're going to keep it really, really simple. So let's go on back to our editor. And if I right click, I can see refresh file tree. And there we go, there's Angular. So now I can just type AngularJS and we're off and running. Now, step 2 of this was, I mentioned you have to put an ng app directive into your shell page. And this is really our shell page in this demo. Otherwise, Angular won't know to process or run some of the other stuff that's in there. So I'm going to come up to the HTML tag and do ng-app. All right, now what that does again is it basically instructs AngularJS that this is an Angular app. That's what the ng kind of represents. And it will therefore scan the document and find other directives, other Angular features, and process those. Now what we're going to do is the data binding demo. So let's go ahead and say name, and then we'll put a text box here. So we'll say input. Type equals text. And now I need to put the property I want to bind this text box to. Now in the Angular world, the easy way to hook a control to a property is to use ng model. And if we go ahead and do that, we could say name, and I can actually name that whatever I want. I could call it foo or bar or name or whatever you'd like. And then we'll end our tag. Now that's going to take care of any value that gets updated in the text box will automatically be pushed into this magical name property. Now the name property is going to be living in something called a root scope. Now we haven't talked about scope a whole lot at this point, And you'll see a little bit more about it coming up in the next section or two. But for now, think of scope as a place to store the data for this view. Now, you might be looking at this like I did the first time and go, well, wait a sec, I don't see where you define this magical thing called a scope. So how's name know to go in it? Well, kind of just go with the flow for now. That's what Angular does out of the box. It'll just create this all for us. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to add a BR, and now we're going to bind using the double squigglies to our name. And that's it. So with 0 lines of JavaScript code, you're going to see that as I type in the text box, the value I type should show up here. Very, very cool. Now, one of the nice features of this brackets editor is, I'm going to go ahead and save the file, but if you hit the little lightning bolt icon here, this will open up the browser. And you can see that, in fact, let me minimize this a little and I'll show you a cool feature here. As I change name, if I say first name, you can see it auto updates over here. That's a nice feature that currently works with HTML and CSS. When you change JavaScript, at least with this version I'm running, you do have to refresh the page. Okay, so now as we type, that's going to update our name property in our root scope. So I'm going to type hello world, and you'll notice it automatically writes out or echoes what I typed because we bound to that property. So if we say hello Angular, you'll see that also works. And what I love about this very simple demo, although it is very simple, is you can see that we're actually doing a lot here. And really the only thing we've done aside from including the script is included the ng app and the ng model directives. Very, very cool, and there's a lot more we're going to cover as we move along here. But that's an example of how easy it is to get started building AngularJS applications.